We are going to go ahead and
It's
start
going
the meeting.
on,
I
but it's
realize
on.
we have a few commissioners that are late, but we're going to go ahead and get started with the presentations. We're going to defer the minutes because we don't have enough to take a vote on. And we'll move right into the Hampton Roads work group. Okay, we'll do the roll call first.
Good morning, EDA members. With the roll, Mr. Barber.
Here.
Ms. Drury is absent. Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Brown is absent. Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Here.
Ms. Smith is absent, and Ms. Spoon.
Here. Morning.
Morning.
Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay. Things change very rapidly around here. Given that, if everyone has received and read the May 16th minutes, I'll entertain a motion in approval for those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
By Mr. Barber,
Aye.
second by Ms. Saunders Smith. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
and Ms. Spoon.
Yes.
Chair, the item is adopted by a vote of 4-0.
Well, we have a number of presentations this morning. I think they're very timely and I'm looking forward to a robust discussion around them. We're going to get started with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council briefing, and we have Mr. Steve Cook, who is Chief Innovation Officer for the Hampton Roads Workforce Council to start.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I appreciate it. I'll stand up so I can see everybody here. Like you said, my name is Steve Cook. I am the Chief Innovation Officer for the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. Been there going close to 8 years now, and been doing workforce development for a while. Prior to that, I was with the Hampton Roads Economic Development Alliance. So I've got, kind of both sides of economic development, so to speak, when it comes to talking about this subject matter in the region. I've been working with Brian and his team for quite some time now. You've got a great economic development team and a great leader here, so appreciate everything that Brian and his team does with us, and truly great partners in what we do on a daily and monthly basis. Some of you may know about the council. You may know us, formerly known us as Opportunity Inc. About almost 2 years ago now. We merged with the Peninsula's Workforce Development Board to create one Workforce Development Board to represent the entire region. And about a year before that, we renamed our organization the Hampton Roads Workforce Council to really kind of encapsulate what we do as an organization and how we function to be a regional entity and not just a South Side entity. We are a growing organization. As some of you may know, we are up to a little over 100 people now. It's quite impressive. And we cover all spectrum from K through 12 to adults. And so this is just going to be a quick little overview of what we do as an organization. For those of you that may have heard this recently or been part of some of our meetings, apologize, but you can see what we do. And really, it's about the employers. We are focused on employers. We are focused on making sure that they are meeting the talent or getting the talent that they need to grow their organizations to really help everyone grow in our region. And you can see how we do it. We recruit, train, retain talent, and really trying to connect job seekers to all different types of training opportunities. It's our job to be working with our educational providers to make sure that those connections are being made with the educational access, our training providers, to the business community. And so we work really hard and diligently to make sure that we're doing that. And we do that through working with our local economic development offices to really make sure that businesses in our community know the services that we offer. I'm going to go through each of those, and then I'll touch on a couple of little special programs that we're doing. You can see that, again, this is just kind of a quick overview of who we are, what we are, and all the localities that we touch on. We do touch from Gloucester to James City County, Williamsburg, to Virginia Beach, to, of course, the city of Portsmouth, and out to Southampton, Franklin. So a large area, a lot of businesses, a lot of people there that are that we're trying to connect to those groups. And which one did you put down? Was it Portsmouth? Did it say Portsmouth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, we want to make sure. Really our touch point, and you have some of our folks here because we're getting ready to open a new facility here in Portsmouth with the VEC. But our touch point is really our career centers. We've got these offices located all over the region. You can see the localities there. Norfolk is probably the primary one where we get the bulk of the people. But in 21, we saw over 10,600. That was actually low. We've actually got about, I think we're up to about 14,000 over the last year in touch points with different people coming through coming through each of our different career centers. And you can see some of the things that we do. They offer workforce skills assessment. They do career counseling. We have career coaches that really focus on the needs of the people that are coming through there, figure out what their skill set is and where they can be placed, or if they have a desire to do something else, we can actually provide dollars for individuals to make sure that they are being skilled to get placed into the job or area that they might be interested in. So if you are interested in a welding, or if you're interested in cyber and IT certification, we can help you get those types of things. Come through our facility, get the right coaching, and then we'll figure out which provider will do what you need to do to get into the job force. So this is really our first touch point and primary touch point with the majority of people in the region. And so we've got a lot of flow through of folks coming there. You can see our partners, the VEC, all the community colleges, DARS and redevelopment housing authorities, et cetera. We work with all of them. It's a comprehensive area to meet the needs of quite a variety and diverse set of people in our region. Like I said, business services, huge part of what we do. And really what makes us set apart here is we really try to focus on the individual businesses. So it's not just a shotgun approach. If a business in Portsmouth, such as Fairlead, is needing a specific set of skill sets, we'll work with them to figure out what kind of training that they need for their incumbent workers or new workers that are coming into their workforce, and really figure out what they're lacking and how we can help them better upskill for these types of jobs. We do a lot of recruitment. We do a lot of job fairs. We do hiring events. It really is really specific to the needs of what that businesses are. And then we'll host regional events as well. And so we've done one, this last one that we did in the spring was in Hampton at the convention center there. And we had about 700 employees with a little over 100 employers there from all over the region trying to tap into those folks that are looking for jobs in the region. So those are the types of things that we're doing. We'll flip that back and forth every year to the Peninsula Southside. But we do have a facility where we can do individual type of hiring events. And so if you're a company that needs a special set of job qualifications, we'll hold those types of events for you. If you're looking to pre-qualify people, this is one of the great benefits and what a lot of companies like. Instead of utilizing Indeed or something where you get hundreds of applications because your search word contains a specific word that matches what that company is, but not necessarily really matches what they're looking for, we can help actually define a little bit more specifically what those companies are looking for. So it's a pre-qualification of an employee that will get to the employer. So rather than looking at 100 resumes, you might be looking at 25 that are more specifically associated with the job descriptions that you are looking for. And those are the types of things that our business services do. They will actually, our team is, we got a great team right now. They will go out, meet with you, and we always recommend that that's really the first and best way to start that conversation is let us go to your place of work, talk to you about what your needs are, and then we'll figure out together which one of our plans will really make sense for you as an employer. So we can do a lot of different activities there. Like I said, improvement, we've got a very strong social media presence. So when we are doing these types of events, we're reaching a lot of people. We have a lot of partners that will push out this information as well. So it's a big, a big net that we cast to get the type of people that our businesses are looking for in the region. Of course, our Veterans Employment Center is huge and one of our biggest assets in the region when it comes to an employment talent base. Everybody wants to tap into that market, from existing businesses to businesses coming that Brian and his team might be recruiting to the area. Business, our military population is a big part of that. And so when we talk about that, we talk about our Veterans Employment Centers. We have two. We have one in Norfolk and one in Newport News. And Sultan Camp is our director of this, and he's really upped our visibility and our game inside the bases as well as outside the bases, and really bringing us to a point where all of these institutions, the people that are helping the transitioning military, all on the same page now, more than it ever really has been before. And so that it's not so disparate and different things happening. The knock on really our ability to help transitioning military is that there's a lot of good organizations doing a lot of great things to tap into that. Who's actually convening all these folks? Who's making sure that we're all talking to each other? That's where we really have really made a presence for ourselves with our Veteran Employment Centers, and making sure that that conversation is happening across the board with all the partners. As Brian can tell you, when you have a company come in, much like Siemens Gamesa, who we've been talking with, as they look to start building their blade finishing facility, they're very interested in the military population, and they want to make sure that they're tapped in to those resources. And so we're working with them and trying to figure out, what the next steps will be as they start ramping up their operations. Of course, youth. I tell you what, Portsmouth has been a super friend. I mean, City of Portsmouth has been very active in this space. They're very active in all of our spaces, but youth in particular. I know Mayor Glover is particularly interested in that population, and so we have a lot of activities going along with that. We've got a very strong internship program that the City of Portsmouth's always been active in. We work with local companies and the city in placing individuals in different internships. We run that for the company, so it's not something that if company A is looking to establish an internship program that they have to figure it out on their own. We actually have a team led by Christina Brooks and now Jada Hall, who will come in and show you how to actually run an internship program and manage that process for you as it goes along. So if you're looking or know of companies that are looking for internships, please, or interns, and we'll be happy to offer an internship, please let us know. We've got kids that we'd like to place, and we've got a great, fantastic team that does that with our youth. We also do a lot of other activities. If you all remember, I think it was this past spring, where we did a visit to the Portsmouth Marine Terminal with a group of kids from all over the region to talk about offshore wind as a potential job opportunity. And so really making them aware of the opportunities that are coming down the road, where they were bussed in. They got to go out to the terminal itself, see what it was all about, hear from the experts in the field and the companies that will be working in that field, and really talk about that industry as something that's coming down the road and that they're potentially could find interesting. So very, very much in this space and doing even more than we have in quite some time. As you all know, we need to retain our kids, and so one of our programs is Campus 757. This actually is our summer 757 slide. in which we really want to retain college students. So college students that are coming back home, college students that have come here and are going to our local college institutes and are staying here for the summer. This offers these kids an interactive set of events during the summer months where they're meeting other interns from different parts of not only the state, but could be out of state, but really introducing them into what makes Hampton Roads and offering them experiences to say, hey, you know, we do have a lot going on here in Hampton Roads. You know, you don't have to always look outside of this region to stay and work. And so our Campus 757 program is designed to do that. We're working with all of our four-year colleges and institutions, even our two-year institutions. So kids are looking to stay in the region and they're an intern. We can offer them different functions and activities to really experience what Hampton Roads is about. That's already kicked off, but we're accepting students all the time. So just another one of the programs that we do. And this was funded through a Go Virginia grant. And I'll touch on that real quick. When I started out at the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, we were probably 99% federally funded. We were a WIOA-based Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, federally funded organization that kind of just did our thing. We did it really well. But in order to really get out and do these types of activities, we had to expand how we were getting funds. And so one of the things that Sean Avery, our president and CEO, was really pushing was, let's figure out how to get different streams of money coming in so we can do things like this. And actually, our Veterans Employment Center, they're not federally funded. We fund some of the folks' salary that work there, but in order to open those things, we had to have private investment. So companies like Walmart actually stepped up. Smithfield Foods gave us a $300,000 grant, $1,000 a year to stand the facility up in Newport News. Those are the types of activities that, you know, and grants that we go after on a yearly, monthly basis. And we are now so heavily into grants that we actually hired somebody to be to write our grants and run that part of our organization. So now where we were 8 years ago with about 99% federal funding, we probably about 45% federal funding now, and 55% of our funding comes from grants, private investment, locality investment into our organization, which helps us do these types of really innovative programs that I'm sure, you know, if you're not aware, you should be aware. And if you need more information, just let me know. We can connect you to the right person. Engagement opportunities, recruit, volunteer, tour, intern, anything that you all, if you're working with businesses that are looking for information, need help with, and I say that, but every company needs help. I get called regularly every week with companies looking for people. And so we try to be as helpful as we can. We're not going to have the answer to everybody's issues, but really working hard to make that happen for our local business community. So you can see these are the types of things that you can do. I thought I'd focus just a little bit because Portsmouth and Brian, you can tell me if I'm too long or not or whatever. But one of our big efforts that we've put a lot of time in is our maritime. And so many of you may have heard that we won an EDA Good Jobs Challenge grant, and we were notified of that last year. It's $11 million grant. It was a big deal. You can see not many were awarded, 32 were awarded. We were actually one of the 6 that the administration decided to push as a model. And so this was a big deal, not only for Hampton Roads, but for our partners. And you can see, you know, we include Eastern Shore, Northeast North Carolina. Could not have been done if we wouldn't have had the support of folks like you all writing letters of support with our business community saying that they would be hiring the people that were going to be going into this. But this is what this is going to be about. And really it's about supporting and focusing on regional alignment, talent attraction, development, retention, and job creation. And through our private organizations, companies like Fairlead, the Newport News Shipbuilding, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, all these folks really agreeing and committing to hire the people that are going to be going through this system is super important. And so we went from a $99,000 Go Virginia grant about 2.5, 3 years ago, where we hired Whitney Lester to really kind of talk about talent in our region and how we're going to figure out what the gaps are between maritime industry and what our educational institutions are providing. And now we've got close to 20 million now that is just focused on this region. And with the Navy has become super involved in this with Columbia class submarine and the expansion that they're doing here in the region and the needs that they're going to have. They're starting to really focus on increasing capacity in the area, trying to figure out how we can attract more people to meet the industry demands. And so they're funneling monies through us to give out to entities such as Tidewater Community College and the expansion of the Trades Academy right down the street here, which I know will be out there this afternoon to congratulate them on their expansion. They're looking to do more, and we want them to do more because there's definitely a need in the region. But you can see that we have over 60 partners. Great thing about this, not just Hampton Roads, we got Northeast North Carolina and the community colleges down there that are going to be funneling people to this industry. And it's not all about the shipyard and the ship repair and the shipbuilding. It's about really everything that touches water we consider maritime. So logistics, there's a lot of logistics and distribution that go on in the area. Offshore wind, of course, is always part of our conversation when we're putting in grants for these types of dollars, because we know that there's going to be needing a special subset of people that will meet the qualifications to go out on the water and repair and build the turbines out there. But really everything touching it, and we want to make sure that it's all inclusive there. And a big part of this is working with Brian and utilizing your facility here. Part of this grant is we're having outreach specialists in each of our communities, really to really market and tell people about these opportunities in our region. And so Nala's been working with our team in terms of setting up, this is going to be kind of a base of a hub for us as we move out into the community here from Portsmouth over to Suffolk. Really talking about the opportunities that are going to be around this and pushing people, because there's dollars involved for training. It's free, a lot of free training. You get wraparound services, to help those individuals that can't necessarily afford transportation, afford childcare. There's dollars involved in all of that. And so we've got an extensive program, and the idea is instead of them having to come to us, we'll be out here talking to them in the communities to make sure that they have all opportunities available to get into these and take advantage of the dollars that are coming out for this industry. That's basically what I figured I would talk about this morning. Thought that might generate some questions or discussion. And so I'll leave it there right now, Brian.
Great. Steve, thank you for coming in and excellent presentation. I think, one of the things we really wanted just to make sure everybody had this morning was awareness of what's happening throughout the region and really beyond, because it is a multi-state effort to ensure that we've got adequate employees in the pipeline to support both the and retention of existing business communities. And the Hampton Roads Workforce Council is one of our strongest partners in the region. I can tell you that, at any meeting we're at, there's a very good likelihood that a representative of the Workforce Council is also going to be there. I can tell you that, they do a number of conferences throughout the country from primarily recently with offshore wind, looking to recruit new businesses in the industry. And Steve and his team are right there with us as we are seeking to attract those companies. And that's a big selling feature as a region, to have an organization dedicated to providing employment opportunities and making sure that our residents are skilled and ready for the workforce. So fantastic partner. I'm sure there are many questions for Steve, and I know that was a very short, high-level overview, Steve.
Yeah.
But certainly would like to open it up for any discussion and questions you might have.
Guess I'll start off. I had a question. It sounds like you do a lot, and I'm just so impressed. I've been, I guess I've known about you for a long time, even when this opportunity. And I'm assuming from what you're saying, your internships and that kind of thing are paid internships. And are you experiencing what everybody else is experiencing, not have enough workers for your employers? And specifically for the city of Portsmouth, what could we do more of to get more students involved?
I think Christina Brooks runs it. She's been very heavily involved in what's going on with the Portsmouth school system and the different programs. And I don't know, and the mayor as well. And so he's really pushing. I know he pushes our programs throughout the schools. It's a matter of what we find is that when we talk about maritime type of trades, everybody's always got that thought process that is not really something that I'm interested in, because it's going to be dirty. It's going to be hard work. It's, when it's hot outside, you got to be out there inside the boat, or, doing your thing out on the grounds. They're all, they're the same issues that I think we've all talked about many times before. It's about the perceptions of what those industries really are. But making sure that kids now know that that's not necessarily the case, and that there are very, very great jobs, life-sustaining jobs, career jobs that you can be had in these industries. And maybe you start out there, but 5 years down the road, after you've been working with your company and you're interested in increasing your skill sets or your educational, a lot of these companies will help you get that, help pay for that. I think it's more of a perception thing. I think I can't go out into the schools and tell a kid, that it's great to work down at the shipyard or Kalana's or Norfolk Naval Shipyard. They need somebody that they can relate to and see a lot of the benefits from that. We were talking about this, I forget which group I was talking with, but we were talking about this the other day. They were talking about actually getting some of the younger folks that have been through there to go to the schools and show them what they're actually buying. Because really it boils down to, in their head, it's all about the money and what comes along with that. So a new car, a new truck, I've got myself a house, or, I'm buying these things versus, another story. So people are our problem. We don't have enough people. Our region has been a slow tick downward in terms of population. You see people moving out. We're trying to make a difference there and really tell the story about the opportunities that are here. It's a lot of different things, but I do think Portsmouth has got the right people that are really telling the story and making sure that the schools know what's going on. The CTE folks, all of them are pretty much aware of the different activities that we're offering. So it's really, I'm not, outside of that, it's just got to get in front of them and let them know the opportunities there.
Just to follow up like that, you talked about the marine trades as being sort of a career pathway kind of thing. What do you see as sort of the top 4 or 5 other career pathways of, emerging
Right.
industry?
So, we focused on maritime. Our next two industry sectors are really healthcare, the healthcare industry, and IT/cyber industry. So we've gotten some dollars to look at the cyber and IT and the career paths that are going to go along there and what we're training here in the region. But healthcare is a huge need. And so, I mean, we're working with all the hospitals, the regional hospitals, and trying to figure out how to get more people to them because of the need that they have there. Those would probably be my top two after the maritime. I mean, really, we get calls from everybody. Our tourism industry is hurting. That, you know, our retail and tourism, they all need people. We've seen a little bit better activity there. 2 years ago, it was desperate. They were desperate for people. They were, you know, just couldn't operate at couldn't fully open a hotel. You know, you've seen the results from restaurants shutting down on days just to give the current employers a rest. But so really, if I had to give you the top three, it would be that.
This is just a basic question. What does an innovation officer do?
Really, it's a nice title for I'm over the youth services, I'm over the business services, over marketing communications, and really we're just trying to make sure that we're not doing the same thing. We're not doing the same thing as we always did. And so when Sean Avery came up with that 6 years ago, he said, you know, we want to be creating versus just staying in the same lane that we always did. And so really it's about making sure that these conversations are happening region wide about what we could be doing better. And then how do we do that? How do we meet those? How do we get to where we want to be? And so that's really it. Really conversation, being part of the conversation and making sure that folks like Brian, that we're being a resource for Brian and all of his activities, as well as all the other economic development analysis.
I know the governor and General Assembly has made significant effort to sort of consolidate and streamline the organizational delivery of workforce development programs at the state level. How do you envision that impacting the services that you currently have and anticipate to have?
Well, we were for it. I mean, and Sean Avery has been part of every discussion at the state level about how that's going to be happening and being laid out. But for us, it brings everything under that one heading, one department. And so really one place to go versus the 8 different, you know, entities that, you know, that all different functions were falling under. And I think it also will provide a little bit more structure for some of the entities that are going underneath that heading. But it's going to be a while. It's going to take some time. Devil's going to be in the details, and you know it's going to have some hiccups as we move forward. But in my mind, it makes all the sense in the world to have, you know, that one heading and all of these entities fall underneath it. So I don't perceive it really changing a whole lot, other than I think that it'll add some ease of communications and how we actually implement the programs we do.
Another thing I was gonna say, I have, 2 kids grandkids who just graduated from college and one that's in college now. And I know you're looking at the colleges in our area, and I think you may want to look outside of our area to other colleges that have a lot of our kids, because they all did internships, but they weren't in our area.
Right.
I mean, they weren't, you know, so, and I tried to say, won't you come home and do the internship? Obviously, they want to get paid, they want to get the experience. So we have a lot of Hampton Roads kids that are in, you know, colleges around the state of Virginia.
Right. No, I completely agree with that. And, you know, our website has some of that information on it, but we as a region need to do a much better job of how we promote internships, actually giving paid internships.
Yeah.
Majority of companies are not doing paid internships. You have to get kind of lucky to fall into one that does. And so we're trying to do that, placement and really encouraging companies to do that. The Campus Spot 7571, we can't dictate, whether a company does that type of paid internship opportunity. Our next gen, our younger, our high schoolers, the 18, 17 through 19-year-olds that we do that, we do provide dollars for that. So, and we provide, I think we're up to about $15 now. It's for a certain amount of hours, but we can't compete with, Target or McDonald's or fast food that are already offering that. So we had to up our hourly wage to make sure that we could retain the students that we were hoping to help and get through that whole thing. But you're absolutely right. And we do try to promote that, but we need to do a better job at that.
I'm excited to share, just follow up to Steve's comments about Next Gen. The city of Portsmouth is participating in that program this year. So that'll be launched at July 1, I believe is the start date. We've got 5 city departments that are actually participating in the program, including our office. So we will have high school students here working with the city for about a month's time over the summer. So we're excited about that. I think it certainly will be a good experience for them and exposing them to, local government and in this office, all the things that we're doing here, hopefully lighting some fires for the future. But that's a great program. The fact that it is paid, I think, is something that helps to get them in the door.
Right.
As you,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as you talk to various business leaders in Hampton Roads area, what is their biggest concern about their inability to hire, recruit, and retain employees from their perspective?
You hear a couple of things, I was visiting with a company last week in Hampton and they were, the common denominator is we could do more if we had more people, more trained people. We could have another shift or we could be producing more if we had more people there. So they're doing what they can with the amount of people that they have. So, so one concern would be, we could be growing our industry right now if we had more people to do that. And then the other concern is, future, how are we going to be progressing? How are we going to be committing, if we can't get the type of people that we're looking for? So it's really all about growth for them. And, bottom line is they're typically in this to make money. And so if they're not able to grow, they're not able to do that. That's probably the biggest factor I see. Were you thinking of something else?
Well, I was trying to narrow, is it wages? Is that an obstacle?
Oh,
Is it
the obstacle.
perception of the particular type of job that is available?
Yeah.
Or is it the hours that are just not working? And I was
Right.
trying to, what is our specific drivers that are saying to some business people, we have a need, but we're not getting the talent that we're
Right.
looking for?
All of those are good ones and definitely resonate with the business community. I think it's just also just people. I mean, again, we're having a hard time finding people to get to these programs. And we can be offering free training and we still have trouble finding spots. Nala can tell you all about that, where she was, but it's just mind boggling. And you have so many resources and we're eager to get folks into these pipelines and it's just not happening. And we do a lot of recruitment. We're in a lot of schools talking about these opportunities. We've done marketing campaigns. We had a major marketing campaign last year. Let's go to work as a region, get off your heinies, get out of the living rooms and let's get back. Let's get back to it. And it worked. It worked for a while. We had an uptick in people coming through our centers, but it's still, and it's not just a Hampton Roads problem. It is a, you know, a Virginia problem and a national problem. Just
Yeah.
getting people to the door. And quite frankly, companies could be doing a little bit better themselves. I mean, you'd be surprised. We've got a lot of dollars on the table in OJT, on the job training funds. And we try to make it as simple as possible. And it is a fairly simple process for a company to take advantage of those types of dollars. But it's usually the same ones that, you know, have done it, gone through the process and understand how it works, and they will continue to take advantage of. We're talking to companies, we'll be out talking and promoting it. They sound excited, but when the rubber hits the road, you know, they slow down a little bit, and then it doesn't happen, and, you know, we'll follow up, but it's apathy, and, you know, it's a little bit of everything. So there's no one pinpointed item, but a lot of items on that list.
Looking out to the future, everyone's talking about AI, what
Yeah.
it's gonna do to the workforce. Any thoughts on where you sit and what impacts that might have in Hampton Roads area?
Not really. I mean, we really haven't thought about that too much. I mean, I think that, you know, when technology increases, we might lose some jobs, but we gain some more jobs. I think there's a give and take there. I think AI is gonna be definitely part of our future, and, you know, I'm not sure how it'll affect us right now, but as we see technology gaining, I think it depends on industries and what the give and take are gonna be, but I think you give some and you get some from there. Technology is historically, you lose a few jobs, but then you gain more jobs. So we'll see. It's definitely one that I think a lot of the people in that industry are trying to figure out now. And of course, governments around the world are trying to figure out how they're gonna regulate or non-regulate that type of thing. So no real answer for you there, but we're keeping an eye on it, but that's about it, you know, listening to the experts.
Last question, I'll be done.
Sure.
But are there any programs that say I am in high school, I'm a 12th grader,
Mm-hmm.
and I spend 2 hours every day working at Fairleigh with anticipation that the skill sets that I'm learning will ultimately result in a job? Do those kinds of situations occur early on in terms of, I won't say guaranteed employment, but high likelihood that you'll be employed with this company if you've been working there since 11th grade, 12th grade?
Yeah. There are some companies that do that really well, and then again, like I said, there's a lot of companies that just don't get it and are not forward thinking and saying, hey, if I invest in this young woman today in 11th or 12th grade, these are potential employers down the road. We do have companies. Fairleigh does work with younger folks. We've had internships with them in the past. Whether that leads to a permanent position or not is, you know, up to them and how they roll and how that actually runs. But there are other companies that, you know, we've got pre-apprenticeship is a big word now. We're really kind of working and hopefully getting the word out on pre-apprenticeship programs so that you're actually getting some experience, but also learning, you know, getting your schooling, getting workplace readiness skills, you know, so that you're not going into a workplace and completely not in tune with how to do the job. And we do that in our youth programs. So the answer is yes, there are plenty of good examples of companies that are doing it out there. There are more companies that need to be more proactive in that area. Apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships, work experience, internships, all of those things go a long way in helping with your future workforce, and companies need to be at the table talking about that. And that's where we try to work together more in getting the knowledge about what programs we offer, our partners, our strategic partners offer, there's a lot of different activities out there designed solely to meet the needs of our workplace, our businesses. And, you know, that's where we need the most help, is getting companies there and understanding that this is for their future. And the more they invest in that, the better off they will be down the road.
Thank you. So there's an answer to several questions. What can Portsmouth do better? I attended the career technical education graduation at Churchland a couple of weeks ago. Portsmouth graduated 82 kids from career and technical education that either got a work certificate or got a job. 82 kids. How many kids did we graduate this past Saturday from the 3 high schools? I don't know, about 1,000. Yeah, so 82 kids out of 1,000. So what's holding them back? Perception. We have created, unfortunately, in my opinion, a perception that working a trade is substandard compared to immediately going to college. There are workforce development programs all over Hampton Roads. In all of the areas Steve talked about, maritime, cyber, IT, health services, opportunities in programs all over Hampton Roads with empty seats, because we haven't gotten the message to kids that learning a trade is worthwhile work and therefore worth your time. So 82 kids. Out of those 82 kids, 8 graduated with jobs. The other 74 graduated with work certificates, but no job. So to your question, how do we make that connection? We got to work more closely with the Workforce Council because they have industry's attention. They have industry's connection. So what can Portsmouth do better? In our career and technical education world, we got to work more closely with the Workforce Council. I attended New Horizons graduation. New Horizons is a CTE high school over on the peninsula. They collaborate with 6 school systems over there. I attended their CTE graduation. They graduated 120 kids. Every one of them graduated with a job. In fact, their employers were at graduation. And when it came time for the kids to get their work certificate, the employer was on the stage handing them their contingent job offer while they were picking up their work certificate. Okay, so we graduated 82 and 8. And by the way, out of the 8, 6 of them were either going into the Navy or into the Marine Corps. So there were 2 who actually got employed by employers other than the military. That's not a bad thing that the Navy and the Marine Corps got 8 or 6 kids, but really the best we could do across 1,000 kids that graduated was get 2 of them non-military jobs. So we got a lot of work to do in our career and technical education arena to make the connection. Now, to do your question, I'm in 12th grade and I want to CTE my way into a permanent job. If I'm in 12th grade, chances are I'm 17 years old. Fair lead liability insurance requires that they be 18 years old. The reason that we need to work with the Workforce Council is the Next Gen program provides that liability coverage for fair lead. So that his slide said ages 14 to 24. Okay, they can put 14-year-olds to work because Next Gen covers the liability for the kid going into fair lead and getting a finger chopped off because they didn't know what they were doing. So there's a collaboration between our CTE programs and the Workforce Council that the mayor and I have been talking about with Christine Brooks, who
has been running the Next Gen program and actually got a lot of that $11 million of grant money that we're trying to get a piece of to come to Portsmouth to help us funnel kids into those programs.
Do you think, I know like now, especially during COVID, I think the shift in what people perceive as, like you said, kind of lower paying jobs or lower, a lot of people now, especially the young kids, they all have this, well, a lot of them have this mentality, I want to be a boss. I don't want to be the worker. I want to own the company. I want to own my own company. You have more high school kids now that already have their own business than I know when I was in school. So is there some type of way, the workforce center, we can work together to, one, let them see it's everyone can't be a boss, and we do have these type of jobs and these jobs do pay well? Or is there something that we can do to show them the benefits of both sides, entrepreneurship and, you know, being the worker? Because I know a lot, especially with TikTok, like they're on TikTok all day long, how to be the boss and how to do this and how to use my money. You know, I think they just kind of go straight to, I just want to be the boss. So maybe that's something that we can try to, when we're talking about getting them to work, you know, kind of throw something in there about entrepreneurship, not to down it, because I'm an entrepreneur myself, but to also show that, you know, being a worker does not mean you're less than being the boss. And I don't know, you guys know what I'm trying to say, but a lot of children now, they just want to be the boss.
Right.
That's
And we
it.
gotta do this job of reaching them where they are. And part of the message that I think we need to deliver, so you learn a trade while you're in high school, you go work that trade when you graduate. Most of the employers that hire those kind of people will pay for their college if they come to work on the second day,
Mhm.
on the third day. You ask, you know, what's the big hangup? One of the big hangups with employers these days is finding employees who come to work on the second day.
Right.
Because the first day they find out, damn, work is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
I actually gotta work.
Hmm.
And so getting them to come back, you know, teach them the work ethics to come back on the second and third and fourth days is a pretty consistent challenge. Steve said, you get in their heads, it's all about making the money. Well, okay, but they don't hand money out. You gotta work for it. And so helping kids understand that yeah, work is a 4-letter word. You actually gotta work to earn your wages. But then to let them know, if you work, you can go to college and learn to apply the college education to the trade that you have learned. And you can graduate with no student loan debt.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the employer will send you to college with the notion of bringing you right back into that company. So you have a guaranteed job.
Or maybe kind of like, I know I used to be a teacher, we used to do like backwards planning. Maybe get them to see the end result first, like talk about, maybe not talk about the work so much, but if you want to own a plumbing company or this type of company, if you want to own it, then here are the steps to get to it. You know, here's the trade, here's the schooling. You have to know how to run the company, work all the departments. Maybe if we kind of present it backwards first, they can kind of see it, because I think they just see, well, I'm just going to be a plumber. No, you can own a plumbing company, but this is how you do it. So maybe if we kind of do like some backwards presentation, it'll be more appealing to the ones who have that entrepreneurship mentality.
Yeah. We do have entrepreneurship conversations, and there are different things that we do with
Mhm.
our WIOA youth programs that work on some of that, but we've heard that too, so.
Yeah, and high school is, to me, high school is almost a little bit too late. I mean, you really gotta get into high school. Middle school, yeah, you gotta get in middle school and start putting that in their minds.
That's some of the money that is coming out of that $11 million grant that we've asked for in Portsmouth is to invest in middle school,
That'd be
to
good.
expose kids to advanced manufacturing and health services, you know, the kinds of things that are producing the jobs that are out there that people are hiring for.
additional, I was just thinking the other day, everybody knows I like to talk about electric cars. That's like my, but the reality is there aren't a lot of mechanics who know how to fix electric cars.
Yeah.
And while there may be 6% of the vehicles today, once they ramp up to 20-25%, there's going to be a huge need for people who know how to fix electric cars. Now is a great time if you're looking forward.
Right.
What are we doing now with young people to get them an opportunity to learn that art? And those are great paying jobs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
That's
TCC
visited
is
the
that
Skilled Trades Academy
Yeah.
on Airline Boulevard.
Mhm.
TCC has a collaboration with Tesla and with, one of the other, electric vehicle companies, and they're teaching kids how to do work on electric vehicles. In fact, they're celebrating an expansion this afternoon, so if you've never visited, it's a great time to go out there, probably get some poo-poos and a punch. Not a punch, but a punch, and actually see what they're up to. It's pretty cool.
Make that tour.
I have a comment. There's another thought that came as you guys were discussing this about whether you all are meeting with the business community to look at the type of incentives that they're putting together. I think the landscape has changed for people since COVID, and what they are incentivized for before COVID is very different now. And so maybe getting with the business community to talk about how that has changed and what incentives can be put into place to get these kids, or even these adults who are really not working or shifting and gig careers to come back into the workforce, whether it's the 4-day work week or some other sort of incentive that supports these new sort of, I think, goals and focus that people are having since COVID. So maybe put some of the onus on the
And I
business.
think it's one of the things that's adding to the complication of hiring folks into trades.
Mhm.
Because if you work in a trade, you can't do that in your pajamas from a computer home.
Yeah.
And so one of the impacts of COVID is
Yeah.
the next door neighbor saw you going out in your pajamas to pick up the morning paper and go back in the house and spend all day in your pajamas working from your computer while they were on their way to climb in the car and drive off to the shipyard to go welding.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's a real issue.
Yeah.
To coax kids down that path. It's a real issue to coax adults
Mhm.
down that path, adults who could be making more money and lifting themselves up if they pursued the trades path, but are now kind of sold on, well, a next door neighbor gets to work from home in their pajamas. That's the kind of job I want. And yeah, it's a tough challenge.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Very good. Appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve, thank you for coming to the presentation. You're welcome to join us for the remainder of the meeting. Happy to have you. If you've got other places to be, I'm sure you've got important things going on in the workforce realm, but feel free if you need to.
I wouldn't mind listening to this one and then I'll head out.
No pressure, no pressure. In fact, to follow this. Will this reach from here or should I come to maybe I'll go to the front?
I think you're good there.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, so I'm LaVonda Graham-Williams. I'm the city attorney, and I'm here to talk to you guys about minority women business enterprises and policy making, which the EDA is an integral part of, I think, any business community's development of such policy. You know, what are these policies and what is a minority women business entity? This is actually defined statutorily, and you will find that a minority women business entity is both minority owned, which essentially means almost 51% of it is owned by one or more minority individuals. The code that defines it actually has a lot more descriptive information about what that is, but that's the crux of it. The other part of it is that the person has to be a minority, and what that means is defined under the code as either African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, or Native American. The interesting thing here is that they add this language that, or persons who are regarded as such by the community of which this person claims to be a part. So if you get your, 21andMe record back at Christmas and find out you have Native American in you, but you haven't been in that community and regarded yourself as such, you may find yourself having a difficult time claiming minority status under many of these policies. Thought that was interesting. One of the other things that you want to look at is what these policies are and what they are not. These policies are essentially public statements and internal guidelines for affirmative steps to provide equal opportunities for business growth and development to local minorities and women businesses. What they are not are preferential treatments or set-asides. The Supreme Court has held quite clearly that those types of policies, without narrowly tailored data to support them, will not pass muster. And so you can't unilaterally just put together a policy based on your altruistic desire to have minorities do better in your community. It has to be based on data. And that data has to narrowly tailor your policies to what that data interprets. That can be found in a Supreme Court case, Richmond v. Croson, which you'll hear is a 1989 case that's often the baseline for these types of policies. So what does the city currently have in this area? We're a Dillon Rule state, and so we first go to the Virginia Code to determine what our authority is, and I included that in your packet. It's 15.2-965.1, and that outlines exactly what I was talking about. You'll see that it just doesn't talk about providing equal opportunity to access. It based information on the analysis of documents that are statistically significant to determine the disparity between the availability and utilization of women-owned and minority-owned businesses. So at the crux of any kind of policy, you're going to have the data to support what you are promoting. And so that leads us to what the city is currently doing, which is our disparity study. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. The city code also outlines, it's based on a couple of ordinances that came out of city council back in 2016 and 2021. That's also in your packet. It's section 2-168, and that's from our city code. And in that, it describes, again, the first line is evidence of statistically significant disparities. Again, reiterating what's important when you're developing your policy statements and the programs that support it. This section of our code enables the city manager to encourage city departments to create these sort of programmings. It also authorizes her to establish a program for the purpose of fulfilling these policies. Again, all of which have to be narrowly tailored to the data that's presented. Back in 2015, and also currently in 2023, we engaged MGT to do a disparity study from which our data will come. Now, what's important about this and where I think EDA can play a huge part is in collecting the data itself. If you are not collecting data presently on the types of individuals that you are looking at, the type of businesses that you are focusing on, who applies, what their business status is, you are doing a huge disservice to our ability to properly promote minority women business enterprises. We currently have a procurement policy, and the school board was actually one of the first agencies in the city to develop an NWBE policy. And you'll notice as we are working through our draft citywide policy, it mirrors much of what's in those policies already. Key to those policies is implementation. Not only do you have to have the data, you need someone that can work with and manipulate that data and apply it to your organization's goals. And so you'll see under the draft citywide MWBE policy, this city council had authorized the position of a minority business coordinator. And so if each agency, I think, should have some individual whose job it is to monitor the data and the practices of your department or your organization or your agency on exactly those policies and goals. Now, the interesting thing is that in the draft policy, EDA is prominently featured. It's one of the organizations within the draft policy that has the most sort of directive. The first directive in the draft policy says that EDA is to promote the city's economic development by initiating and including the utilization of MBWE in its own practices. This policy extends to all procurement activities and services sought by the agency. So as you can see, this is something that's going to be an expectation of most agencies, including economic development. Particularly though, for economic development, outside of the edicts for department heads, it says that the Economic Development Department shall encourage private sector investing in the city of Portsmouth that will generate tax revenue through business attraction, development, retention, expansion, entrepreneurship. The programs that you create are to strengthen local minority women and small businesses and shall be developed, including training, grants, and other support acts, which will result in greater opportunities and increase the city's tax base. I mention that because your agency is the only one in the draft policy right now that has a very specific directive. And it is really about business attraction, development, retention, and expansion. And that's important because I think on the ground floor of any MWBE policy are the small businesses. That's the crux of what you're trying to encourage in that sort of policy. And so when you're looking at where does economic development fit in developing a policy, you're going to be driven by those factors that I described. Now, the reason it's just a draft policy and it's not sort of up on the board here is because we won't finalize that policy until we get the disparity study and the information therein. But it's important for you all to know that that's sort of the outer line guidelines that have been determined for the department. So what can economic development do right now? Well, I think you start working on developing your own policy statement using your own data that you have available to you. You all are boots on the ground in evaluating what businesses need here, what those businesses look like, where do you have holes in those representations. And so you will use that to sort of develop the bumpers for your policy. You need to continue to collect data. I can't stress that enough. Collecting the data is the key for our legal analysis when we're advising your agency on whether your policy will pass legal muster. And so you'll need to support any policy or program that you have with the data. And that includes, again, where the businesses are located, the types of businesses, who are the owners, what percentage do they own, how often do they provide services to the citizens of Portsmouth? Are they a business located in Portsmouth but primarily service outside of Portsmouth? Do they also work with other minority business entities as subcontractors? What are their concerns about the future? Once you get them up and running, where do they falter? What are the concerns about how they scale up or scale down? These are the types of data collectives that you can be putting together to support your policy. You want to evaluate what you currently have in your procedures and practices. Look at how you put programs together. How much lead time are you giving for entities to know that they exist? What type of messaging are you using? Are you going out into the community to put these programs out so that they're reaching a broader audience? Are your policies and procedures and practices known in the community? Have you looked at them to see if you remove barriers and simplified processes? Again, boots on the ground, talking with these business entities about what has made it difficult for them to follow through on any advice that you've given them or any programming that you've had available to them that they've not been able to follow through on. Making outreach and engagement and education a baseline approach to any activity that you do. You should be thinking, have we reached this far? Have we continued to engage the entity and have we educated them on the ability that they have under the program? And I think the last thing is remain a resource to the business and development through partnership and training. I think once you've done all of that, when it comes time to putting your programs together, it will fit much better to the data that you've collected and will pass muster when we review it for implementation. So what's next? So the city of Portsmouth is, like I said, currently waiting on our disparity study to produce the findings so that we know where we're focusing. I can tell you that last year's focus resulted in significant disparity in a number of areas. The last disparity study, which was in 2015. They looked at construction, architecture, engineering, professional services, non-professional services, and goods and services. And just about all of those areas found some form of disparity. The current disparity study is looking at about $300 million in spending between 2017 and 2021 in the same 5 categories. And we expect a review of that data to come back in July. But of the areas that they had recommendations for in 2015 was vendor registration, so collecting data on the vendors that you do have available, considering combining any MWBE program with any SBE program, small business entities programs, working on subcontract project goals, working on your aspirational MWBE goals, and then data management, which is again, more data collection. So I think the closing idea here is to review your policy and procedures that you currently have in place. Look to what we're doing is looking to other cities and their implementations of their policies. We're going to then update it pursuant to the disparity study, and then we'll continue to review the ever-changing landscape of the law of minority women in business enterprise policy development and share them accordingly. But if you don't take anything else from this presentation, collect the data, collect the data, collect the data. Do you have any questions?
One question. I think in regards to grants, I think we're pretty solid there. I think the question I have is, let's just assume we have 22 acres of land and we're trying to sell. We're selling it to a developer who wants to build, this example, a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Are we putting in some requirements at that point to say that in order to buy this land, you have to adhere to our minority requirements in terms of contractor, subcontract? Is that conversation held then, or is that held after it's approved by city council?
I think first you're going to be looking at what your disparity study reveals about those areas.
Okay.
Are those areas where there is a need? And if there is, what percentage? And then you already have aspirational goals for that. What makes development a little bit difficult is who holds the bag, who really holds the advantage in that situation. It's very different than a contract for goods and services. When you're talking about development, the normal process for how you enforce those types of conversations that you might have is just very difficult. That's not to say that you can't come up with some idea on how best to do it. You oftentimes part of your evaluation might be, is this a company that has shown historically that they do use robust MBWE aspirational goals and fulfills them? Are you getting complaints that subcontractors aren't being held on to once they are granted this contract for whatever reason? So I think it is a conversation to be had, but there are going to be steps that you need to look at beforehand. And then you're going to have as a team with legal, a discussion on what's the most sound way to do that for development deals, which is very different than anything else in other areas like procurement or goods and services.
Most of our activity, we do very little procurement
Mhm.
as such. Most of our activity is in the realm of financial assistance to businesses kind of thing. And the data that we've collected so far is not very extensive, but does have very significant women and minority participation in the program. I guess the question I would have is, can you give us a sort of a matrix of the types of data that we could or should be collecting relative to our, grant making responsibilities?
Sure. I think what will drive that mostly is exactly what disparity studies are looking for. So they're looking for what minority businesses are present in your area. So if you are aware of companies, whether they are applying for your grants or not, so I imagine that you pull together a program because of a need that you recognize in the community. And so that need is going to be based on data that you're aware of, which will include minority businesses or not. And
No, we probably don't have that data.
I see, okay. And so maybe that's the starting point.
Well, yeah.
But also,
Yeah, I think the programs you're talking about, I think it's important to remember that the programs themselves have not utilized any sort of racial preference
right,
at all. They're just open to the community. They have nevertheless had tremendous success in MWBE
right,
usage. So I think what Lavanda's getting to is if you have a program where you're
Mhm.
creating some sort of preference, then that is where you really need to document,
Right.
and be protected.
right.
But
But if your programs are already working and on a, what they call a neutral race or sex-based analysis, then you don't have to collect all that data. But where I'm saying that the collecting the data is important is for when you do want to create programming where you're trying to focus on these minority women and business-owned entities. You'll need that data to support it. So you'll want to know how many minority women owned businesses are out there, how many are applying for this particular grant, what other areas am I missing here?
well, the development area in particular,
Right.
I think is,
Right,
because we've had conversations about the need for a policy for the situation that the chairman mentioned, and that would be a policy that would have a MWBE preference or specific requirement.
right,
And I think that goes exactly to what you're talking about.
In the development area, the issue or the question I basically have is you have the developer who may or may not be a minority or woman developer. But that primary one may not or may use contractors,
mhm,
subcontractors, and those contractors, subcontractors may use suppliers. I guess the point that or the question I have is,
how far do you go in that
Yeah.
process, right?
and then those suppliers may have employees, and, it
Sure.
just,
Sure. You go as far as you can. I mean, because all of that data will support the ability for the program to continue. And so if you are able to document that each level of, and I'm lacking in the words because it's not my area, but subcontractor to subcontractor, that all plays into what you're able to fulfill in terms of a need or not a need. So if they're not there, then that shows that there's a need. But when you're trying to fulfill that need and you are able to meet those goals that you set, then that data is very important. So I think if you can document it, if it can be tracked, then track it, and you make it a requirement of the businesses who are participating and receiving the incentive or whatever benefit from being selected in that particular way. So it's not so much your job to actually collect the data, you can pass that on to the actual entity as a condition. But it's important that that information be had so it can support the programming. That makes sense. So is your concern that, that's just, it's not a possibility? Is it a difficult task?
I think it's difficult to ask because, in some cases, our main role would be in the sale of the property. And the question is, how much information should we, can we, gender at the point of sale?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's really an area where that would be a concern so much as it would be in the, sort of what you started with, which is the grant process.
Okay, there's three buckets really that we have. We have the grant making that we do, it's in front of you here. Okay. Those, and we do collect from there, those are like that.
Right.
Then the second bucket is the land sales bucket,
Mm-hmm.
where we're selling land for future development to a developer of some sort.
Right.
And the third bucket, which is less frequent, almost infrequent, I would say, is a special incentive to a developer to
Mhm.
there.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And what you were talking about is mainly in that third bucket, which is very, very infrequent. I don't think we have but one or two kind of thing. But the two other buckets are
Yeah.
yeah.
The development piece, again, going back to the chairman's point, is always a really difficult one, right? Because of the leverage that you have in that scenario and the ability to. But I think, again, if your programs are such that they are reaching the minority business women, minority women business owners in a neutral way where it's not the focus, then the data is not important.
Okay.
It just works. And that's the preference of the court. We won't have any issue with those.
Okay, that's typically
That's going to be that grant, right?
Yeah.
The second one in the sale, I struggle with that because it's a difficult.
I think what you said before about the disparity study is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
On that, because I think the disparity study is going to look at construction trades, which is really the issue on development. For huge developments, there may be an equity piece, but most of the time it's going to be the construction. And if the disparity study comes back and says, well, because of prior de jure segregation and discrimination, there's a lack of available companies in the region, in the construction area, or if there are MWB construction companies in the area, in the region, but they're not getting a share of the work, then that seems to go to a justification for requiring reporting post-closing and creating some sort of incentive structure to make sure that developers of a certain level of project are using MWBEs in the area.
But what you're talking about in terms of sale is tricky because that is an area where racial and sex identification can be quite troublesome. And so, I think the same cautionary tactics in that area need to be followed on a baseline approach. But if you are concerned, if your opportunities aren't reaching a wider buyer, for example, then you are focusing more on your own procedures and processes, and you can keep your data internally for yourself to decide whether that's an issue that you want to create a program on. But it's not gonna require the same sort of data that it would for a program based in making the outreach, reach the entities that are primarily women or minority owned businesses. So it's not everything that you do that's gonna fall within that need. And I think that's where the disparity study is gonna shape that a little bit. And you don't throw out the same cautionary, rules and regulations in those areas, where it would be a problem. But you can look at what you use internally for your own processes and procedures to make sure that you have that wider reach, and if a program is necessary.
Feeling like two different things here. I mean, it's almost like if the city was going out saying, I want a developer to build a city hall for us,
Okay,
then the city has specific criteria that they're saying, to do this job,
Right.
we expect this amount of minority
but there's
participation.
gonna be different buckets of minority
Right.
participation because those are multi-level, much like, Neil was saying, sorry, Chairman, Vice Chair Bart.
No, Neil is
Neil,
fine.
And so you just have to piece it out, right?
Right.
Because you're gonna have the development piece, you're gonna have the construction and contracting piece, you're gonna have, all of those various buckets, which is what makes this a very complicated, it seems very simple. We want minorities to have business. Let's just create the policy, but you have to narrowly tailor it to the need and the actual area of concern.
No, and I think if I'm selling a piece of land.
Yeah.
And I know that you're gonna be the developer,
Right,
it's almost like you have to go through the city's funnel.
right,
And when you come out, you got a score
that's right.
that says
Yeah.
you're a developer that has A score in terms of minority participation.
Right,
That may influence us on the sale or it may not,
right,
but it's part of the actions that we look at
sure.
prior to selling a piece of property.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, particularly when the disparity, it's not a secret that disparity exists in many of those areas. And so I don't think you're gonna run afoul of any sort of process that prioritizes minorities in that situation, because you're gonna have the data to support it. I mean, you're not gonna fix that problem overnight. And having a system where your minority participation is a factor is not the same as that program being a focus. So it's not gonna hit the same way in terms of analysis legally, or whether you're race-based or not. I mean, it's just a factor. And so because it's just a factor of many other things, you're gonna have a much more successful opportunity to keep that than something else that makes that a primary consideration or not.
Chair, if I can just ask, because we are running up on a window here that is closing. I believe we have a commissioner that has another engagement this morning, and
Okay.
I don't want to lose a forum, and we do have some items that we need to take action on. But if I could suggest perhaps we maybe have a focus group or a committee to discuss the development of some policies and procedures. I understand the disparity study is going to be a key part of that, but we don't have a formal policy now, but I think it would be timely to start that process, and maybe we can have some working conversations about this and then come back at a later date with some proposals for consideration by me. I would agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And I will say your website, link to your MBWE page has some very good language in there, and it has, references to other entities that support that notion. I think that's a very good start.
Very good discussion, and
Thank you.
probably
Thank you.
one of many that is going to be had here going forward. We are going to, I'd like to thank the city attorney and deputy city attorney North for their presentations on this important topic. We do have some business items for consideration for you this morning. The first is a real property investment grant request that we had received in, I think, the last round, and we've been working with the owner to finish that up. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Tracy. She's going to present the application to you from 818 County Street Suite A.
Good morning, everyone. We received this grant application actually in January, but there were a few hiccups in the project on his part. But this address should seem pretty familiar. 818 County Street, Suite A is actually the Holly Point location. When we were there during the ribbon cutting ceremony last year, and as you know, they have 3 commercial spaces on the first floor. This project will take place, in the corner suite. So Suite A has 2 entrances, and the applicant is a restaurant. It will be Ollie's Mediterranean Restaurant. It's by a gentleman named Claudio Avila. The scope of the work is he's essentially taking the space provided and installing a commercial kitchen event system, which we all are aware of the scope of work involved in that project. Permanent kitchen equipment and exterior signage. His total project cost for these 3 items alone is $97,559.39. And he's requesting the full $25,000 for the reimbursement. Give you a visual, is what this space looks like. Then a shower and do. And shows you the drywall and stone forming and electrical work. And he did provide me with a floor plan for what he would like the interior of the restaurant would have to be. It looks like when you walk in, all of the, restaurant, it'll be like fast casual Mediterranean food. It's kind of like a line setup where you can go up and order exactly what you want and kind of hand it to you very quickly. And then he'll have restaurant seating. So, easy grant application once he was able to get through all the hiccups of a gas line and then the permit process. Happy to answer any questions on this one.
It's always good to get a new restaurant.
It is.
Yes, it is.
And different.
Can imagine, based on location, this will probably be heavily trafficked by, individuals at the Naval Hospital and maybe the shipyard, and I'm sure, City Hall as well. So we're excited about this. It helps to diversify our offerings when it comes to dining options down.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Barber and a second by Sandra Smith. I'll leave the roll. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Sandra Smith,
Yes.
and Mrs. Boone.
Yes.
Chair, the item is adopted by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. If you want me to talk to you about an extension request on a current application from Presidential Funeral Services, we did give them, an administratively approved extension already. And it ran out on June 15th, and this was also a large ribbon cutting ceremony that the majority of everyone was at. And the specific projects that they still need to complete are an awning installation to the rear of the building for the drive-through services they plan to offer. Flooring installation to the back of the house operations. As you saw on the front of the house, they've done several different flooring options, and I think she's going with something standard, very basic, I think. And structural upgrades, to hold the crematory system. She's only requesting an additional 90 days. And swears that it will be done this time. She's very excited to get her full operation underway. But her current extension request will put her at September 7th.
Move for approval.
Second.
The roll. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
and Ms. Boone.
Yes.
Chair, the item is adopted by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you.
Your next item is for FY24 Business Investment Grant Program Guidelines. We have had some discussions previously about some proposed amendments or revisions to the program guidelines, really for the benefit of our applicants and participants, and clarifying just a few things to help make it easier for everybody. So again, really looking at a few clarifications on your real estate investment grant program, your business development grant, and your acceleration grant, to clarify the guidelines and address some utilization issues that we've encountered. I'll start off with your Smart Start Business Development Grant. We are proposing to update the grant parameters to reflect that no more than 2 grant applications may be submitted per business principal within a 5-year period. This has not necessarily been an issue yet, but we see that there is the possibility that we could have a principal owner of a business coming in significantly beyond that. And we felt that that could potentially pose a funding issue and prevent funding some other applicants that we may have to the program. So we are proposing to limit that to no more than 2 applications in a 5-year period, which we think is providing opportunity for entrepreneurs to have multiple business ventures, but still allowing for those funds to be utilized by others. And I'm happy to answer any questions individually. If not, I'll continue. The Business Acceleration Grant, we are adding some language to clarify that this is a matching grant, reimbursement-based program. We've had a couple of occasions where I don't believe they fully understood that, despite it being spelled out in the application. So we've strengthened the language just to make sure that that's very clear on their end. And I think we've done that. And these changes are highlighted in the applications which have been provided to you at the table. And then the last is the Real Property Investment Grant. We have proposed, based on some prior conversations with the commission, that the eligibility guidelines be modified to remove that the applicant of an existing business would need to expand their physical space by at least 30%. We have found that this has limited a number of potential applicants from participating in the program for businesses that may have purchased or leased space where they do have limitations on expansion, but they do have a need for improvements within or outside of the space. We think that this would really open it up to a number of our business owners who I think have plans to improve their physical space. And then the second item is updating the guidelines for the Real Property Investment Grant to reflect that the business owner leasing a space must provide written authorization from the property owner consenting to the improvements and use of the program. And this is really just kind of strengthening that. We do have that as a requirement. It needs to be written into the lease, but this would just amend the application form just to have a space for the property owner to sign if that would apply. And those are the modifications as we proposed. Happy to answer any questions or discuss them further.
Move for approval. Move for approval.
Thank you both. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
and Ms. Spoon.
Yes.
Chair, the item is adopted by a vote of 4-0. Your next item is a EDA property update. And just want to run back through our property listing of action items here that we have. And starting out with the properties at 1028 High Street and 1013 through 1015 Queen Street. These are properties that are currently under contract, the former Murray and Holmes location. We have received the environmental report back. That came back with some minor items, nothing of major concern as it relates to a commercial reuse standpoint. But we are good on the environmental. We're working through the title work now with Mr. Miller and his office. We have identified a few minor items that need to be resolved in order just to ensure that we have clear title to the property, and that's in process now on the owner's side. So we would hope that would be resolved here in the near future, so that we can report that it was a closing. I'm going to ask Mr. Miller to add in here anything of No, I think that's accurate. There are a couple of title issues on each one. We don't anticipate a problem, and it just takes a little while to work them out. 3479 Greenwood Drive. This is a property just off of Victory Boulevard. Similar situation there. We've completed the environmental work that's come back clean, no concerns. We are working towards I think a minor title item there. So we hope to have that potential closing position here. That's 30 to 90. 710 Lincoln Street. This is property under contract with Big Homies. They are currently in their permitting process. So as soon as they receive their permit approvals, we will be able to close on that. They have been moving forward. Those are under review with planning and engineering department now, is my understanding. 1100 High Street. This is the Woda Cooper multifamily project. I am pleased to share with you that earlier this month, they did receive word from the Virginia Housing Authority that they received their low-income housing tax credit financing. So they did score high enough to receive financing, and I'm told that they will receive their agreement from the state on June 28th. So as far as that being a solidified situation as it relates to financing at the end of this month, that should be
That's good.
They will still need to go through their permitting process, but I think that will happen quickly thereafter. So some good news to share with you on that. 1609 High Street. This is the property adjacent to the Hampton Roads Community Health Center. I'm pleased to share that we are under contract. They did accept the EDA's offer to purchase the property, so we are currently under contract and working through the due diligence process for that. Are there any questions before I continue with the rest of the list? Okay, very good. 1021 1107 High Street. This is the property that will be developed as King's Landing, the 52-unit townhome development. And Mr. Keels is currently in the process of working through his site plan review in order to obtain permits and working through his financing as well. So that is under review right now. That went to the city council for his use permit amendment approval last Tuesday. So he did receive that approval from the council, and the plan review is under. If you recall, they were not able to do this plan review until the use permit was amended. So that has moved forward. 73 Farragut Street in the Craddock community. We are working towards demolition. I do have an engineering firm that we've engaged to provide erosion and sediment and demolition plans for the demolition of the property. There is a cost associated with that of $5,000. I believe I advised you of that at your May meeting. They are moving forward with that. So as soon as those plans are ready to be put out to bid, we will do that and proceed with removal of the structure. 42 Afton Parkway in the Craddock community, the old Afton Theater. We are working to get that property under contract. It's really an assignment of an existing contract. We have engaged the environmental consultant for some inspections on the property. We're waiting results. I do believe there is a slight issue with respect to some liens on the property that we're going to need to work to resolve. But that is moving forward. 2525 through 2631 Turnpike Road. These are properties that were owned by the city and recently transferred to the EDA. We're working with those under contract for development of single family housing. So that will be moving forward as well. And then lastly, it's actually 3115 Airline Boulevard. I apologize for the typo there. We are working to get under contract. That is a city-owned property that was transferred to the EDA. And we do have a buyer for that looking to construct a contractor's office and warehouse at that location. In fact, we'll be meeting with our City Development Review Committee tomorrow to discuss this project, to help them move forward with that. Yeah, just an update on where we are. Obviously, quite a bit underway here in processes, and we'll be providing you a monthly update going forward of where we are.
Thank you.
Well, we've lost our form, so I'm gonna have to.
Okay. Okay, we're not gonna do the closed meeting. It's for items submitted by board members.
Yes, Chair.
Are there any items from the board members? Having heard none. Report back.
Yes, just a few items to discuss really quickly. In your package here at the table, and I believe we've emailed it out as well, is an exhibit of the Innovation District. At your last meeting, I believe, Chair Mitchell had asked for a map to outline all of the EDA and city-owned properties within the district boundaries, and we have a really great exhibit that our GIS staff has put together here that I think does a really great job of showing the assemblage of properties. Certainly, we're working to acquire more. Those are not reflected on this exhibit now, but we will update it as we close on that real estate. And you can see there's significant land holdings within the district. So
When is the innovation district plan to be completed?
great question. I think we're still about a year out on that as they're working
Year
through the
out.
process. They are still in the public engagement phase of that. I think they've got maybe one more meeting planned, and then I think they'll really start to work out the details of that plan. But I do believe it's at some point in 2024. I did want to follow up on the comments that Vice Chair Barber had at your last meeting regarding staffing and EDA support for a real estate development position. Just to let you know, I have not yet had an opportunity to speak with the city manager about that, but I do plan to do that and have that conversation and come back with a response for you on your offer of support there. I do appreciate that. And as you can see from the property update that we just ran through, we've got a lot going on. So having somebody to assist with that, I think would be very helpful. And then lastly, there was a request for some discussion on broadband infrastructure and high-speed internet access. What I'd like to do is request that our Chief Information Officer, Cliff Hayes, come before you at a future meeting to provide a briefing on where we stand with our broadband network and infrastructure and opportunities in the future for public-private partnership with that being in place so that we can support technology, data-driven businesses here in the city. So I will look to coordinate that with Mr. Hayes and see if we can get him into the meeting here late summer, early fall. Good. And Chair, those were the report backs that I had noted. But if there's anything else that I didn't have listed that you have a question about.
Questions? There are none. This meeting is adjourned.